Okay, welcome to the first video of my pop culture inspired makeup. I just thought it would be kind of enjoyable to do my makeup and tell you guys about book series and books that I really enjoy and I think you might enjoy. The first books that I'm going to talk about are a series. It's called the Parasol Protectorate, and it's a steampunk urban fantasy mystery series written by Gail Carriger. So my plan is to do my makeup, like my eyeshadow look, based on the colors of the book titles. So we're going to go a little bit out of order because the way I worked it out doesn't work with putting the makeup on in order. But let's go ahead and get into the makeup. And I am going to start by putting my hair up out of my way. So I'm gonna just put that back there. And then I like to use this Revolution Conceal and Define. You might be able to read it better that way. I have it in F1 because I am super pale. So, you know. It's a foundation and concealer, which is kind of cool. I've used it, I think, once as a foundation. It's not the best foundation I've ever used. I have a favorite that I really like to use, but I do like to use it as an eyeshadow base, especially if I'm not doing a full face of makeup and I'm just doing my eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and blend this out. I've got my little palette here. I'm using a KVD Vegan Beauty concealer brush. They had a sale on their website and all of their brushes were half off, so I bought some and I really like it. I mean, it can take a little tiny bit of concealer and just make it go for days. So now that my eyes are all primed with a concealer and not an eye primer, one of these days I'll actually splurge and get an eye primer, but I haven't yet. I'm going to use my James Charles mini palette. It's the Morphe James Charles palette. I don't watch his videos or anything, but it's a really good palette. I'm not even going to lie. I love it. Okay, I need a fluffy powder brush. I got this set from Amazon and I love them. They have a couple of different color styles that you can get and they're just really cute. But I'm going to take this bright pink shade in the Morphe palette and I'm just going to put it in the crease. And while I do that, we're going to talk about the spice level of this particular series. As I mentioned, I haven't read the other 4 books in a minute, so it's hard for me to fully tell you, like, hey, they're not spicy at all, or, you know, whatever. But I will just say that the setting for the books is a steampunk Victorian era London, England, Egypt, Scotland, or Ireland. It's one of the two. So you're not gonna get, like, it's not the spiciest of all books. I would give it probably a 1 or a 2 for this series. It's not super explicit. That's the word I was looking for. Not super explicit, which there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if you're somebody that doesn't like super explicit books, then I think you'll still really be able to enjoy these. There might be 1 or 2 small scenes that are slightly explicit. It's partially a romance novel. It's really hard in this day and age to get away from that. It doesn't really bother me, so if it bothers you, then, you know, you can take that into account. So we've got a little bit of pink here, just in the corners. You know, and that's going to sort of blend out and just be a nice little touch of color. And I chose this pink because it sort of matches the first book's color for the title here. That's sort of the color I was going for when I picked that one. So we've got our nice little pink crease. Put that brush to the side, and then I'm going to take this Morphe M433 brush. I think it's the only Morphe brush I own. I like their brushes, it's a nice one. And for the next color, I'm actually going to go into my little Huda Beauty Mauve Obsessions palette. I got this on sale too, don't worry. And I'm going to take this dark maroon color, and it comes with a little mirror there, but I'm going to put this right here on the outer corner. And then just blend it a little bit with the pink. Just sort of make that come together. I like to use this brush for this because it's sort of flat, but it's also kind of fluffy. So it's nice to pack the color there, but then you can also use it to blend. So I'm just going to take a little more of that because, you know, more is definitely more. And that's sort of just what I like. So you can see that kind of blended together nicely. I'll probably go back in at the end and add a little bit more pink to brighten that up. But I'll just do that to the other side. I know that there are people, especially like YouTubers, that to save time they just do one eye. But I can never get an eye to look the same if I do that. So we're just adding this over here. And while I'm finishing this up, I will say that these books are not terribly long. They're probably like, you know, 400 or 500 pages if you buy the actual book, you know, the like hard copy of it. I'm not sure how much they would be as far as like an ebook is concerned. Maybe a little more because the books tend to be smaller if you're reading on your phone or whatever, so that makes more pages. But they're a quick read. The story grabs you right away, and then you're just whisked away into this world of steampunk and werewolves and vampires and soulless people. So readability, super easy. Like, obviously some of the words are going to be a little bit more difficult because it is a steampunk and an English Victorian setting. So you're going to have older words that maybe don't make a lot of sense, but if you're into the steampunk type stuff, then some of those words you're going to recognize. It's not difficult to grasp the meaning of them, and there's always Google if you don't know what a word is. If you find that it's hard to read books in settings like that, then, you know, that's something you should take into account in thinking about reading this story as well, because, you know, you want to enjoy the book. So if you know that you don't enjoy like historical and sci-fi steampunk settings, then it might not be the book for you. All right, the eyes never match. They get close, but anyways, so that's looking very purple, right? We're not really seeing a whole lot of red, and red is what I was going for to match Blameless. So we're getting a little bit more of like this darker red, but that's not 100% what we're going for. So in the James Charles palette, there is, I'm just gonna clean off my brush a little bit. I have my handy dandy little brush cleaner. There is a sort of like a brick orangey red color. So I'm going to use that and still use this mirror. And I'm just going to put that on top of that other color. And there we go. So that sort of brightens it up and makes it more red than purple, because it was getting a real purple. Just sort of blend that into, there we go. Got some red now. Do the same to the other side. Okay, so we've got our pink, we've got our red. Next, we're actually skipping to the 5th book for our next color. You can't even see the top of that. There's Timeless. So that's the color we're going for. It's like an orangey color. So I kind of wanted a sort of flame type color scheme, and now I'm trying to find the right brush. There it is. It was hiding. So I'm using another brush from that set that I bought off of Amazon. And it's you can see it's like a rounded sort of fluffy brush. I have another one from a different set, this set, which is more dense, and I just don't like, this one is fluffier, I don't know, and this one's bigger. I don't really use that set at all. I had a moment of just needing to buy makeup brushes, just like currently I'm going through a need to buy books, so I don't need to buy them, but I want to. So on this James Charles palette there's a orange color, and I'm going to take that on this brush, so you can see that's sort of the color that we're going for. And I really like this angled, narrow, rounded, fluffy brush because it can get right into the inner corner, and then you just sort of drag that up and blend it with the pink and drag it over to blend it with the red. Now obviously this color is a little bit lighter, so it's going to take more than one coat. That's just, you know, something you have to deal with. It's not bad, like you can tell that it's orange and it's there, maybe not on camera, but in person. So just going to take some more and focus here to blend it. Now another thing, if you have a lighter color like this that you can do, is you can take a sort of white base. So I have like these NYX jumbo eye pencils, and sometimes I'll just take that and wipe that on my eye, and it's a really white base that you can put a color on that's maybe a little lighter. So if you needed like a yellow or something, that might be an option. So I'm just gonna keep adding to this and just sort of dragging it lightly over the other colors to blend it. You just sort of dabbing, and then it sort of just comes together there. There is a darker orange right next to it that I think I will use just to help that blend together a little better. Yeah, so that's a little more subtle. You're not gonna really be able to tell that I added that extra color in there, but it sort of makes it pop a little more right there. This orange it's very light. It's a really pretty color. I like it a lot. And I probably could have gone with the darker orange, but I didn't. I'm actually going to take this really bright yellow that's on this palette too, and I'm just going to put that right in the inner corner. sort of drag it up, just to make everything pop a little more. Yeah, pretty happy with that. Like I said, I am going to take some pink because it's sort of disappearing, but I'll end up with some pink there. Sometimes I just layer and layer and layer until I get what I'm really looking for, which I might never get at this point, because I might not have the right colors, but it's not a bad look. So that's sort of what we're working with on the top. So while I work on this other eye, I'm going to explain the world a little bit that's set up in this book series. So it's, like I said, steampunk, Victorian era England. I believe it's set in London, so, you know, you can go from there. But in this world, there are vampires, there are werewolves, there are ghosts. You know, it's like a paranormal sort of setting. The thing that's different about this world from pretty much, well, not any other, but most other paranormal settings or supernatural settings, is that in this world, the reason people can become vampires or can become werewolves or end up being ghosts that like stick around is because they have an excess of soul. So, you know, every person has a soul. Almost every person has a soul. Hint, hint. There's a reason the first book is named Soulless. So some people have more soul than normal. So they have an excess of soul. And those people tend to be artists, actors, etc., etc. And so in this world, you're not normally just bitten and turned into a vampire or bitten and turned into a werewolf or whatever. People actually will sort of like apply to be, I believe they're called drones for the vampires, and I cannot for the life of me remember what they're called for the werewolves, but you're sort of like their lackeys for a while. It's kind of like an internship. So you're basically learning what it means to be a vampire in society and what it means to be a werewolf in society, and you have to do this for a couple of years before they'll finally turn you. And sometimes they'll be like, no, you don't actually have an excess of soul. It's more of like a guessing game on whether or not you do or not. But that's sort of what they go off of. So if you have the excess of soul, then you will live through the turning, in whichever case. And so it's important to note that Alexia Terabati, who is our main character in the series, is what is known as a soulless. Although I don't know that she realizes all that entails when the books first start. But she is a young woman of Italian and English descent, so she's a little darker than everybody else she knows, and because of that, and because, you know, people are people, she is basically an old maid at this point, so she never expects to get married. She's just happy to go along with her two sisters that are out in the world trying to find husbands, and she's just more than happy to sort of chaperone them and sneak off to the libraries of other people's houses and just do her thing, basically, which is to read and order a tea service and just have her little alone time, because she doesn't actually like people and she doesn't want to be out in society with other people. So that's pretty much how the story begins, and you meet Lord Macon, who is the werewolf of the story. He's the alpha, and him and Alexia end up together. Just a little spoiler there for you. But I think that's probably why I love the first book so much, is because there's a lot of focus on their relationship, and it just makes me happy. Okay, so I just finished working on the yellow and the orange in the inner corner, and now we're going to go ahead and do foundation and concealer, because that's the upper eyelid completed, and I want to have concealer and everything down before I add the lower lash line, which is going to be the blue color and the purple in the other two books. Book 2, Changeless, and then book 4, Heartless. Okay, to start with, I like to use the Porefessional to put on my nose and like right here where the pores are really big, and sometimes I'll put it up here, but that tends to just really catch on like any foundation I use, so I'm probably not actually going to put it there today. It just takes a little bit. For foundation, I'm going to use my favorite lately. This is pretty much all I've been using since I bought it, which is the Loreal Infallible 24-hour fresh wear. This stuff is awesome. It dries on its own. You don't have to powder it at all. It dries, it stays on. It's probably the longest lasting foundation that I've ever used, especially on my nose. I have a super oily nose and it just like eats foundation. So I tend to have to powder a lot more than would probably be normal, so I don't do a whole lot of like contouring on my nose or anything. It depends on how I'm feeling. Lately I've been using the number 10 KVD Vegan Beauty brush to put my foundation on, so let's go ahead and get started with that. So just, it's quite light, but again, I'm really pasty and super pale, so it's not like it doesn't match the rest of like my neck and whatnot. So just get that, cover up the spots. It's got really good coverage too. Whether or not this brush does the coverage justice, well, I don't know. You can always add more, right? So, we are talking about how awesome the Parasol Protectorate series is. Now, obviously, I haven't really told you a lot about what happens in the books. Just the basic rundown of like what characters are sort of involved, and although I feel like I didn't tell you about the Soulless status. And so pretty much I told you about the excess of soul, that people that become werewolves and vampires and ghosts when they die. I told you about that. So the main character, Alexia, she is actually a soulless, and there are not very many in the world, like ever. Her father was one. You learn that eventually in the storyline. And so the soulless have the ability to basically suck the excess soul out of people when they're touching them. So like when she is touching a werewolf or a vampire, they become mortal. She's sort of somehow just neutralizes their immortality and their powers and whatnot. So that does sort of become a interesting point throughout the books. And clearly that's sort of the whole point of the first book, is sort of discovering what her soulless, what her soullessness does and all that fun stuff. There are a million things to love about this series. I love the world that she builds and the way that the soul works and is so important to the system of the story. It's really inclusive, and it's nice to see that in this sort of setting. So for concealer, I'm going to use Naked Skin by Urban Decay. I need to get some new concealer. I'm out. I have Shape Tape as well, and I really like it, but there's like nothing that comes out of that one. So just nice generous amount here. You know, there's all of the steampunk things to love, which is, you know, secret societies, scientific research, dirigibles, hot air, steam, modes of transportation. Okay. I don't really have to bring it down too much because that KVD Vegan Beauty concealer brush really makes things last. So I always like to do a little bit of extra here on the nose. Do a little boop, boop there. A little on the chin. In the smile lines, which mine aren't too terrible for now. I do sometimes like to add just a touch down here to emphasize the cheekbone, I think, jawline. I don't know what it's emphasizing, but I've seen other people do it, so sometimes I do it. Alright, so you sort of, I like to let the under eye sit for a while just so it really sort of sets up and is good. Let's see, what else do I love about this? I've got my little notebook over here. I love the sense of humor that Gail has Alexia portray. I mean, she's so funny. It's, you know, really witty and kind of dry, a very English humor, if you will. And then she's always getting into trouble, so she's always having to, like, talk her way out of pretty much everything that she does because she's a little bit of a hot mess, especially at the beginning. You know, she doesn't know what she's doing with her life because what women are expected to do in that time period is to get married and have babies, and like I said, that's not really something that's in the cards for her as far as she can tell. So later on in the other books, you know, you really get to see her really come into her own in those cases. But so she's just constantly getting in trouble, and that's how she meets Lord Macon, who is the hunky werewolf. You know, you got a book about werewolves and vampires and whatnot, you gotta have a hunky Scottish werewolf. And so he's a lot of fun, and it's one of those things where it's like, he doesn't want to be attracted to her, but he's totally attracted to her, and it's really cute, because, like, she doesn't really know what to do with her feelings for him either. So it just, I don't know, it's just really adorable. The secret societies continue the theme throughout. You know, it's a very steampunk thing. So that's a lot of fun as well. I love that she doesn't skimp on, like, telling us about the food that Alexia wants to eat. Like, that's something that's important to the character, and so it's included in the book. And I really like that, because sometimes books act like people don't need to eat, or, you know, like, live like normal humans. It's a great series. They go well together. They all flow together. So you definitely want to read them in order. You don't want to skip ahead or anything like that. Start with Soulless, then Changeless, Blameless, Heartless, and Timeless. Okay, so we're just going to clean up that edge right there a little bit. And just kind of, I'm not trying to take too much away from right here in the darkest corners of my under eyes, because it's dark. Now I'm going to take this little fluffy brush and my BH Cosmetics Under Eye Brightening Powder. There's a lot of BH that's going to show up here pretty soon because they had a sale. I like sales. So I'm just going to take that and just dust it under here. I'm not packing it too much, but I am packing it a little bit. I don't know that it brightens my under eye. I'm just a little bit lazy right now on what I want to use, so I think it's a little bit yellow for me, to be honest, but I paid money for it, so I'm going to use it. And I don't know if anybody else in the whole entire world is really going to notice, but there's that insider information for you. My camera I was using died for the last time, so sorry if the footage looks a lot different because I switched to my iPhone. Now that we have the under eyes done, we've got our foundation on, now we can move on to doing the lower lash line. So I'm going to take this rounded brush and clean it off. It's very orange on this. And then there is a sort of pale purple on here, and I'm just going to take that. It's that sort of that color. And I'm just going to put it down here. I'm going to take it pretty far over and just leave a little tiny bit for the blue. I like to use this brush for this too because it's big enough that it doesn't look like you're just lining your lower lash line. It actually adds a little, it sort of spreads it out a little. Just poke myself in the eye. So it looks a little bit more blended. Now for the blue, I'm going to take a little tiny flat brush like this, same set, and there's this shiny pale blue. It's very pale, and I'm going to put that on the inner lower lash line. And you're not going to be able to see it, but don't worry. Because just like I layered some of the reds and some of the oranges, we're going to layer some blue. Because even though this is really like, if you saw it in the palette, it matches that light blue from the title. It just doesn't, that one kind of popped a little more, huh? That pops. It's not bad. I don't love it. So I'm going to take a little bit of this bright blue. Oh yeah, that's more like it. Now I just want to remind everybody, I didn't say these looks were going to be wearable. So take that as you will. Would I wear this out? Absolutely. I think I want to finish my face because, you know, why not? Could finish the eyes, but what's the fun in that? So for the rest of the face, I like to use Hula bronzer for bronzing. And then I have, it's just an angled, fluffy brush from that same set. Just take a little bit. I don't do a lot on the bronzer. I'm just going to use the camera here. Take it up to the forehead. Make it look like I've seen the sun before in my life. Okay. Might throw a little extra, try and make it look like I have a jawline. You know. And then we'll go on the other side. You definitely want to try and stay in those cheekbones, but with the bronzer, you're just sort of going anywhere that you might get some sun. But I like to put it here in like the hollow of the cheekbone, the little tiny bit that I have, just to sort of help emphasize that. Make sure you get all the way across the forehead because your forehead should be darker than the rest of your face. Sun is going to hit that more. Looks pretty good. Then I like to take this LA Girls blush. It's called Just Bare. And I like to use that for contouring, which I don't do a lot of. It's just a little tiny bit, just right there. And then I blend it, because I don't want it to look like I'm trying that hard. Now, obviously, some people do a lot more contouring. I am not one of those people. We'll go with that. I'm not actually going anywhere, so it doesn't really matter. And then I have a big fluffy brush that clearly I use for blush since it's pink now and it was white. I have the BH Cosmetics Vanilla Peach Truffle blush. And I'm going to go in with this orangey color because I feel like it. You don't have to wear blush, but if you want to, you know, go for it. Just sort of, I don't like to put it too much like right here. I do more of like a side thing, but just sort of blend it in with your contouring. And I find that one side is always darker than the other. And it doesn't really matter what you do. It's just always going to be that way. So, like this side, it always comes out. Maybe that cheek is just bigger. Well, I don't know. Who knows? But you can put a little on top if you want. Put it wherever you want. There's not really anything left on that brush, to be honest. So, I don't like to go ham with the blush, just a touch. Just a dab will do you know? Okay, the last thing, highlighter. This NYX Illuminator I have had for years. It is the first highlighter I ever bought. I've used quite a bit of it. Never took the little film off of the thing, but I like to use this sort of big rounded, I don't know why. I just like the way it works. Get a nice bit of that on there and then just go to town. Yes. Then we're gonna go over here and go to town over here. Maybe do a little on the tip of the nose. In a couple hours, I won't need that because it'll do it on its own. Now, I will say that I didn't actually powder any of the places except for right here, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Normally I would powder my nose like a lot and it looks like it's a completely different color. So that's a thing. But let's go ahead and finish up our eyes because that's pretty much the last thing, and then the lips. So I will take my BH Cosmetic Power Pencil, and I like to stab myself in the eye first thing. Not really. Poke yourself in the eye a lot. Now obviously when you first start doing that you can like lift up your lid, but if you've got a lot of color going on here, I mean, you run the risk that you're gonna mess that up. A little wetter than it used to be now. Obviously you can sharpen it so it's not so dull, but... And then when you're down here, if you want to just sort of pull a little bit, which I know people will tell you not to do, and it's all about being gentle. But if you're not used to it, then you're probably going to need to do that just so you can actually get your waterline lined. So I like to put that as a base, and then because I'm extra, I take a angled brush that I need to find. Angled brush. And then I take a black eyeshadow, still from that James Charles palette. And I just put it in there on top of it. Sometimes I just use the black eyeshadow, but I try and get in the eyelashes so that there are no spots, because even though no one else in the world can see it, I can see it when like my lash line isn't fully blacked out. So, and then if you've got your eyelashes sticking together, you can sort of fiddle with them as well. Then you just go in . Do the same thing on the bottom. All right. Probably can't even tell the difference, but I feel like it just makes it a little smokier. Now we're gonna take our Kat Von D tattoo liner. I got this before they changed their name, so there you have it. And because I cleaned that up there, I can actually use this line, wow, to make the worst cat eye ever. Okay, so this looks really bad. It is. It's very awful. But because we're just gonna go ahead and drag this over, it won't be too bad. From a distance, it'll be fine. It's not too thick, you know, you can still see all of the color, which is good. Now we'll see what the cousin is gonna do. So much better. And just fill it in. this one is a little thicker. We're gonna go with that. Good enough for me. Now I've just realized that I did not do my inner corner. You have to do your inner corner, duh. So I'm gonna take the little flat brush that I did the blue with, and I'm gonna go into my BH Cosmetics Wild Child palette that I've had for an eternity. And I'm just gonna take this very bright white here. Then I'm just gonna put a little bit up here on that brow. I mean, does that not just complete it and just make it pow? Okay, now we're going to do eyebrows, which I have really nice eyebrows, I think. So all I do is add a little bit of eyeshadow, fill them in. So I go in with a black, although sometimes if I'm feeling especially bold, I will do like, I don't know, blue or green. When I had teal hair, I would do them teal a lot. Might be bringing the teal hair back here pretty soon. Since we are almost done with our eyes and our makeup and all of that jazz, I will just tell you that the Parasol Protectorate is not the only series that Gail has written. There's also the Custard Protocol, which I believe has a very close tie to the Parasol Protectorate. I definitely just put that down there. And then there's also the Finishing School series, which I have the first and the third books of, and I need to read that at some point very soon. We're just sort of gonna ignore the fact that I put a little bit of black there. It is what it is. So I was using the KVD Vegan Beauty number 75, her eyebrow brush. They had a sale. Their stuff was like 50% off, so I just bought a bunch of brushes. Before we do lips, last thing, StellarLash BH Cosmetics. It's not my favorite mascara I've ever used, but I do like it. You just gotta be careful because if it's clumpy on your lashes, especially the lower lashes, it will like fall off. And that's just not fun when you go to wipe them off and then they just smear everywhere. So, you know, I also don't curl my lashes because I'm kind of lazy, and that freaks me out. Sticking a pencil near my eye, not so much. Although it's been many years since I curled my lashes, so it might not be that bad anymore, but you can build this one up, this mascara. I could do fake lashes. I have some. I'm just real lazy. And they just take forever to put on, and I need to practice more. But again, I'm lazy, so, you know, here we are. I feel like we did a very fun eye look for a very fun series of books. They're just a ride, you know? I think the only thing I really didn't like was that they sort of tried to hint at the idea of like a love triangle, and I hate that. Because one thing that I'm sure you'll learn eventually if I continue doing these, when I build my ship, I stay on it. until it goes down. I do not jump from ship to ship. I was Team Edward the entire time. Still am Team Edward. But that's the only thing that bothered me. And it's not even a thing. That's just me being weird. Lower lash line. I want to make sure these are nice and not gloopy. Good enough. All right. So, one singular step left. Lipstick. I am going to use Lolita from Kat Von D. I know she's problematic to a lot of people, but I would get a tattoo from her in a heartbeat. She is a fantastic tattoo artist. Anywho, I also really enjoy her makeup line. The nice thing about like a cream lipstick is you can sort of wipe it off if you need to. All right. So that's pretty much the look. I don't know if I would stay with this lipstick. It's a little bit darker than I'm kind of going for, but I don't really want to mess with it. So it doesn't look terrible. You might go for more of a nude. I just feel like nude lipsticks look really, really bad on me. Let's see, I've got this sort of that's kind of fun. So just a little yeah, that sort of neutralized it a little bit. It's not quite so red now. A little shiny. Morphe setting spray. Normally you would do this before you do your mascara and your lashes. Clearly I didn't, so here we are. My rating for Parasol Protectorate, 5 out of 5. Highly recommend. It's so much fun. It's just a great world that she's built. It's just a ton of fun. It's funny. It's mysterious. There's action. There's just all kinds of stuff in it. So highly recommend if you're into steampunk or, you know, like a little bit of fantasy, paranormal, any of that stuff, check out this series. It's a good one. And then if you like it, check out her other stuff as well. She's got more than just those 2 other series that I mentioned. She's got some nonfiction stuff that she's written and just all sorts of really great books. So I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you next time.